All right, joining me once again here on the Matthew Filipowicz Show is my good buddy, Zach Roberts. Zach is a photo and video journalist whose work has been seen in The Nation, The Guardian, Alternate, Suicide Girls. He is a producer for Greg Palast, all of which and more you can find at zdroberts.com and also on Twitter at zdroberts. Zach, thank you so much for being on the show again.
Hey, thanks for having me.
All right, so Zach, buddy, we saw each other a couple weeks ago when I was in New York City, and but actually you had this idea following, I don't know if you just had it after following the Cecily McMillan trial, but it sort of stemmed out of this, where the idea, you're a professional photographer, and you were at countless Occupy protests. You were beaten up by cops, like a lot of the protesters there, but all kind of having this idea of that it's really, really important of having independent media with professional gear and who are professional people who know how to professionally shoot actually be at events like Occupy Wall Street. Tell me your thoughts on this.
So it's one of those things. If you kind of look around at the progressive media, we're talking about, and I don't want to like point fingers at anyone, because at any different time, I know what budgets are and I know what things are, so it's always difficult. But, you were talking about, the Progressive magazine, in these times, this is like that kind of world, not those in particular. I'm just saying like that kind of world, because I've also worked for both of those. So I'm definitely not blaming, putting blame on like that type of thing. But the idea is that you need professional photographers on the ground during events, during different things, especially protests, especially during like things like Occupy Wall Street, where there's a lot of controversial things happening, and you need coverage. Because yes, you can pull from the AP feed, the Reuters feed photos, and that's something that more and more, as budgets dwindle, more and more people do, because it's cheap and it's easy, and the AP photographers are insanely, amazingly good. So it's kind of crazy almost not to. But the problem is that you do not know what is the context behind the photo. You don't know what happened before and what happened after, because you usually cannot talk to the photographer. Or, and this is also really important, and this is something that with Bag News Notes we worked on, with the Cecily McMillan case, that you don't know what happened that entire evening, and you have no access to those other photos. So my argument is basically that the progressive movement needs professional videographers, professional photographers who are there for the magazine, for the website, so that they have access to the entire evening, so that they can do what independent media is supposed to do, which is counter the mainstream narrative and make the argument for the other way. I mean, especially during Occupy, when everyone was saying, well, Occupy Wall Street, those people put the cops up to beating them, or they, they struck back, or they're nasty. And I can tell you, as a person who, like, I never slipped over, but like I spent far, far too much time in there. Especially based on how much money I was actually making during the time. But like, it was always hard to make the argument when you're not getting paid, or just like, are you a member of them or are you a journalist? But it's like, to me, it was one of those really important things, because what like wire photographers and whatever, they get their shot and then they have to run and file because they have to go and do the next story. And the one thing that progressive photographers or independent media photographers could do is that they can stay there and that they don't have to file that day. Like most of my stories, most of the photo essays that I did for Truth Out or anybody else, I never published that day or like that night, like wire photographers have to, otherwise they'll get fired. And I'm not saying, and to me this is a really important thing, and I'm not saying that's not really useful, because wire photographers are great, and they need to, and we need that type of just random access to pull a photo for later, especially as a person who's worked as a photo editor a little bit, like to be able to just pull a photo from like 6 months ago and just be like, that photo works, illustration sort of stuff. But if you're ever going to really tell a story about what happened on a night, you need photo coverage. And the argument will be made Well, everybody has a a cell phone camera. Everybody has little video cameras. We have the live stream feed usually. We have different things like that. The problem is that outside of maybe Tim Pool, who does amazing live stream work and I'm friends with, not many.
A lot of it's pretty unwatchable and pretty. The quality of it is lacking. Even on some live streaming stuff, we're actually talking about the quality of it, not even just like by the way it's shot, but just the actual quality of some of the live streaming stuff is lacking compared to what you actually can get with a better camera and with someone who really knows how to do it, especially when it comes to things that are happening at night. And when police officers essentially start swinging their batons around.